Ahead of time, I apologize for not using a proper microphone, but I'm going to be explaining my interconnectivity hypothesis here and then visualizing the necessary mathematics to describe what do I mean by special interconnectivity. As far as mathematics goes, it started purely demonstrative, purely conceptual at first, and then it unraveled into this massive, interesting hypothesis um, that can tie all the forces together. And I'm not just going to make the bold claim that it just ties all the forces together. It incidentally does, though. It incidentally does. So, um, I'm going to start with entanglement, and then I'm going to work my way to uh, teleportation, etc. These things that we discovered in mechanics, or they discovered, let me be more specific. I had no hand in the matter. I derived these concepts from directly from quantum mechanics. So, when the particle is going towards the crystal to be split and entangled, I believe that it's entangled with space-time alone. And so this is the part where I'm slow down. All right. So the particle is split by a crystal. The electron, photon, etc. is split by a crystal, and then the two twins of the particle do not lose any mass in the splitting of each of them. Um, and this should be duly noted that what's happening when you split an electron is you're technically not losing any of the energy in the splitting of the electron. You get two identical electrons, just like you would get two identical photons. Now, lots of people would say, well, that violates the law, uh, the conservation of energy, but a lot of things already do violate the law of conservation of energy. For instance, gravity, it automatically does. There is no loss of energy in an object moving and falling towards another object. Yet there's a gain in momentum, which hints at a gain in energy. And as well, there's no loss in mass when this is happening. So there's neither a loss in mass and there's a gain in kinetic energy. So there is a violation of the law of conservation of energy there. That's why I brought up gravity. And I'm going to be explaining entanglement with the idea that particles, the concept, if you will, are made up of space-time, and all their forces can be expressed in different patterns of space-time. And the reason why one particle is interconnected with another, is entangled, if you will, is because of space-time. Lots of inferences on physics say that it is because information is faster than that. Doesn't explain anything, though. That doesn't explain anything philosophically, and it might be apparent that information is faster than the speed of light. That might be apparent, but there is no median. There is no physicality to information, but there is a physicality to spacetime. And we utilize spacetime enough to know that that would be a useful median for things to move upon. So, without further ado, this is the hypothesis of special interconnectivity. When one force, notice, I want to note you to notice that there's two blocks here. And just for relevance, I'm going to tweak the background color and brighten it up a little bit. Too bright. Might be a little too bright. There. Okay. There's two blocks here. When one force acts on an electron, if you will, the other space around the other electron is not acted on, but the electron itself is acted on. So the interconnecting spacetime between the two, this is a bad representation of spacetime, but there's no perfect representation of spacetime. Most of the time, spacetime is attributed to a grid-like pattern. It can be a pattern in circles. It can be a pattern in quantum fluctuation. It can be a pattern in waves. But I'm doing it as a checkerboard pattern for now. The angles of both electrons are the same, and the space between the two move the interconnected space, not all of space, just the interconnected space between the two move. And thus the forces, etc., around this particle aren't moving, but the space that the particle is made of is. And so when this particle rotates the, if you will, opposite direction, then the other particle will, and they will always stay in the same direction as space-time untangles between the two, or attempts to. And eventually they come to a rest again. Exact same position, etc. One force applied to one electron is not applied to the other, but the space-time between the two is acted upon. This is special interconnectivity. And when one force is applied to the opposite electron, the space-time between the two is acted upon, causing the opposite electron to twist and turn. So, if this is a horrible representation for space, but there's space around these objects as well. And to sum it up, this is what is going on. Now I'm going to try and demonstrate this with teleportation, but I'm going to have to freehand it. So let me find a good spot to freehand this. Somewhere. Right there. Okay. All right. So there. When there is a third object that is interconnected with the two, and that object is destroyed, the space-time between that object and the particle that it was interacted with, this one, is unweaving. And so the particle is unweaving. And the space-time, this, is unweaving between the two. And this opposite direction has no choice but to also unweave. And when it unweaves, it becomes the particle that was destroyed. That is a cause and an effect of what is going on. And it might happen instantaneously, but nonetheless, it is a cause and an effect within a finite amount of time, even backwards in time, if you will. But there was a cause. There's unweaving space-time, and in effect, a particle became the other particle. And that cause and effect might not be dependent upon it happened this second, and therefore the next second this happened, but rather that there is one attributed cause, and then there is one attributed effect that can be repeated many times. I'm going to have to start my second video.